In the winter of 1870, while Paris was under Prussian siege and its supply lines were severed, the city did not starve. It was fed in significant part by a guild of market gardeners, the maraîchers, operating on the fringe plots between the city's boulevards and the open countryside. On plots averaging no more than 1 acre, often far less, these men produced yields that modern agriculture still cannot replicate per square meter. They worked without tractors, without synthetic fertilizer, without irrigation systems. They worked with compost, glass, and an understanding of soil biology that the industrial age has never bothered to recover. Between 1940 and 1970, the industrialization of Western agriculture was not a natural evolution. It was a policy. Governments, chemical companies, and machinery manufacturers, operating in coordinated alignment through institutions like the USDA and the post-war Marshall Plan agricultural programs, actively restructured farming incentives around scale. Subsidies flowed to those who grew large, grew one thing, and bought inputs. The small market gardener, growing 15 crops on 1 acre with a profit margin that made large-scale operators look inefficient, was not a viable unit in this new architecture. The French intensive method was not banned. It was rendered economically invisible, its practitioners absorbed into cities, its knowledge unrecorded in any agricultural curriculum, its techniques classified as hobby gardening rather than what they actually were: the most calorie-dense, land-efficient food production system in recorded European history. The maraîchers built their system on a single biological insight that predates the word microbiology by 2 centuries, that the soil is not a medium. It is an organism. Their foundational technique was the preparation of a deep, living, growing bed, a minimum of 45 to 60 centimeters of densely composted horse manure from the city's stables, layered and aged until it reached a specific stage of thermophilic decomposition. This was not topsoil management. This was the deliberate construction of a rhizospheric environment, a root zone with the aeration, water retention, and microbial density to support root growth at a rate and depth that compressed, mineral-poor surface soil cannot approach. Here is the physics of why this works. Conventional tilled soil has a bulk density of approximately 1.3 to 1.6 grams per cubic centimeter. Root tip elongation slows measurably above 1.4 g/cm3 and ceases almost entirely above 1.6 g/cm. The deeply composted beds of the maraîchers maintained bulk densities below 0.9 g/cm3, a soil so structurally open that roots moved through it at 2 to 3 times the rate of roots in conventional ground, reaching deep moisture and mineral reserves that transformed growth rates above the surface. Water retention followed the same principle. The composted matrix held moisture through capillary adhesion, the same force that draws water upward through a narrow glass tube, creating a reservoir in the root zone that remained available to plants during surface dry spells without irrigation. The glass cloches, bell-shaped covers placed over individual plants, created a second-order microclimate effect, trapping radiant heat from the compost's continued decomposition beneath the glass, raising the soil temperature inside by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, extending the growing season at both ends by 6 to 8 weeks. They were not covering the plants to protect them from the cold. They were using the glass to concentrate the heat the compost was already generating. It was a living heating system, buried in the ground, powering food production through a Paris winter. The average maraîcher operating in 1890s Paris generated the equivalent of a skilled tradesman's annual income from plots between 500 and 2,000 square meters. In today's terms, a market garden smaller than a suburban backyard producing a full family income in vegetables. Modern industrial vegetable farming requires between 50 and 200 acres to approach comparable revenue, because its yield per square meter is a fraction of the French-intensive output, dependent on machinery costs, chemical inputs, and a price per kilogram so compressed by commodity markets that margin survival requires scale. The maraîchers needed none of that. A bed of compost, a barrow, a set of cloches, and knowledge that has been sitting unread for 150 years. Begin with a bed no wider than 1.2 meters, the width that allows both hands to reach the center from either side without stepping on the growing surface. Foot compaction is the enemy of the system. Never step on the bed. Build permanent paths around it. Excavate to 45 centimeters and fill with a layered mixture of aged compost and aged manure, horse manure if available, otherwise any well-composted animal material. The bed should be slightly mounded, 15 to 20 centimeters above the surrounding path level. This promotes drainage and maximizes the surface area exposed to light. Plant in a hexagonal offset pattern, not rows. Offset planting means each plant is equidistant from all surrounding plants, which means the leaf canopy of mature plants shades the soil surface completely, suppressing weeds and reducing moisture evaporation without mulch or intervention. Practice constant succession. As one crop is harvested, the next transplant goes in the same day. The bed is never bare. The biology of the root zone is never interrupted. This is the system. It fits in any backyard. It requires no machinery. It produces more food per square meter than anything industrial agriculture has engineered in a century of trying. Industrial agriculture did not beat the maraîchers by being more productive. It beat them by being louder, by having the machinery, the subsidies, and the institutional voice to declare that what they were doing was obsolete. It was never obsolete. It was simply inconvenient. A system that requires only your hands, your compost, and your knowledge cannot be monopolized. It cannot be priced. It cannot be cut off. That is exactly why they stopped teaching it.